This is the new BYD Atto 2 dmi. Now, most of us are familiar with BYD and their electric vehicles, but the dmi stands for Dual Mode Intelligent. So yes, this is a plug-in hybrid, but in fact, there's even a third mode. More on that and everything else you need to know about this vehicle on today's episode of Autogefühl with me, AJ. First of all, when I saw the pictures of this, it seemed a bit larger, but now in person, it is fairly compact. This is indeed in the B segment, so something similar to even a Golf plug-in hybrid or the Kia Niro plug-in hybrid. The front design, I think, is definitely iconic BYD. Sure, this is not part of the Ocean series, so it's not like the Dolphin or the Sea Lion, but it still has those very slim LED lights. The Atto, of course, also is a pure electric car, but this hybrid version distinguishes itself with small subtle changes to the front bumper here. Very sleek and slim air vents, completing a very inoffensive look. The Atto 2 comes in two variants, the base Active and the higher trim Boost. The base version comes with 16-inch wheels, but as you see here, we have the 17-inch here on the Boost trim. Of course, there's a lot more differences between the two trims, especially when it comes to powertrain and drivetrain, and more on that later. But again, the size, B segment, compact. This is 4.3 meters long, but it's fairly tall, and the wheelbase is also really long. So how does that translate to interior space? We'll find out. But again, a very neat, simple design, true to standards, what we know. Good to see regular door handles. Now you might know that these are no longer allowed in China, so these are not the flush door handles. I do like the floating roof effect here with this shiny silver color, but overall, again, nothing too brash, very safe. What do you think of the design? I also like these bubbles in the bottom, gives it that off-road look, but to be honest, this is just a front-wheel drive and I wouldn't take it off-roading if I were you. Now, what is that dual mode all about? Well, obviously a plug-in hybrid means there's a petrol engine and an electric motor. This is a 1.5-liter, 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated petrol engine, and depending on the trim, you get either a 7.8 kilowatt-hour LFP battery, the BYD Blade battery, or a 18 kilowatt-hour battery. The difference between those two is about 100 kilos, so 1,510 kilos to 1,620 kilos difference. So do you really need the bigger battery? We'll talk about range in a minute. But this engine is basically just a power generator, similar to a Rex, like the Qashqai or the X-Trail, the Nissan e-Power that I drove last year. So the primary role of the petrol engine is to just charge the battery. Of course, when the battery is fully charged, you can drive an EV only. Those are the two modes. The third hidden mode is the fact that unlike a Rex, this engine also can be coupled directly to the front wheels to drive the front wheels under heavy load. So there's technically three modes. Speaking of battery and charging, this is a plug-in hybrid, and with most plug-in hybrids these days, this is just with AC charging. It takes about 3 hours to top it up from almost dead, so 15% to 100%. The small battery pack has a claimed range of 40 kilometers, and the bigger battery pack has a claimed range of 90 kilometers. The system output for the small battery is 166 metric horsepower, and the bigger battery is 212 metric horsepower. But the top speed is about 180 kilometers per hour. Shouldn't be a big problem. What do you guys think about the back design? I see a little hint of Mercedes GLB, which I guess is no bad thing. The tail lamps are also really nice. I like this intricate woven pattern design here. It looks like an infinity symbol, looks like a helical symbol. I like the layers to it. There's also a LED strip that connects both sides, so there's a nice long light that extends visually the width of the Atto 2. Even this double haunch spoiler adds to the drama. And finally, I also do like this air diffuser style design for the lower part of the bumper. No visible tailpipes altogether, but overall a neat design. So here is the key fob, pretty simple. Of course, this has keyless entry, so just approach the car and the door unlocks, the mirrors open. No flush door handles, so easy to find them. Let's do a door closing sound check, shall we? Not too bad. I would say it sounds pretty solid. There is a little bit of shimmy here on this beading if you look, But again, I think not too bad. The door opens really nice and wide. Here in this trim and these color options, it's a bit monochromatic. I must admit, I like slightly brighter interior colors, but this materials up here are soft. This is also very plush, nice and plush down here. Good to see real buttons for the window controls. All one-touch automatic, by the way, which is a nice feature. Even for the mirror control, real buttons. Soft here as well. And as expected, slightly harder plastics down here. The active trim actually gets fabric seats, and the boost trim, like the one we have here, gets vegan leatherette seat upholstery. The contour of the seats are actually quite nice. Good side bolstering. Even the padding here and the perforation, really nice. At least looks high quality. The boost also gets electronically adjusting seats. Now, getting inside, how does that fare? Because this has the SUV body style and this tall roof, it's really easy. I just had to duck in and I can swing my feet inside. Now, the interior, again, a little bit monochromatic, but with the boost, what you also get is this. A very large and expansive panoramic sunroof, albeit it is a fixed glass roof, so that you cannot open that for further ventilation, but definitely makes the interior a lot more bright. Nice soft touch materials for the dashboard, a damped and spacious glove box, and thankfully a good old-fashioned latch, no release on the touchscreen. But down here, things are a little bit strange. Well, I like the fact that you have extra storage down here, but all your charging cables, so your 12-volt power socket, 2 USB-C, are all down here. So you got to plug your cable in before you set off driving. But even then, to charge your phone, you have to reach over, fumble with the cable, and then you have it sticking up on the upper deck. There is no way to thread the cable to the upper deck of the console. But at the end of the day, not such a big deal, because on top here, we do have the inductive phone charger, so the wireless phone charger up here. It is cooled, but funnily enough, there's even air conditioning vents up here. And lastly, at the bottom of this console, we have physical buttons to change the drive mode. We'll talk about that later. Your engine start-stop, to switch between EV and hybrid, and even your volume control. The steering wheel is really nice because I love the fact that you have physical buttons. On the right-hand side here, you have buttons to control your actual infotainment and the volume and things like that. And you can also see I can jump straight to different views and different modes, including a full map on the digital instruments. And on the left-hand side, I have controls for the adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist. So my safety suite controls are here as well. And we'll test these out once we're driving. But the actual screen is pretty nice to read. Some of the font is a little bit small. Once we're moving, it's a little bit hard to read, but I can't complain too much. Taking center stage, of course, is the 12.8-inch touchscreen. Go to Google Maps directly, so you can, log into your Google account and quickly access all your locations and general navigation, of course. And there's a drawer that you can slide from the top to quickly access things like the regen braking level and some assistant features as well. If you go to the actual apps, now you see that there are some interesting things, like you have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, but also YouTube. So while you're charging, you can watch Autogefühl and catch up on our latest episodes. There's even a karaoke app. How fun is that? But as you noticed, there is no dedicated climate unit. You have to access that through the touchscreen. But you have to go to a different menu here to access the seat heating and the steering wheel heating. So yeah, I wish there was a separate console with physical buttons for this as well. Up here, of course, you have a sun visor with a vanity mirror and a light. Does it extend? No, but something else might have caught your eye. There's a sunglasses holder right here. These aren't my sunglasses. Let's take a look in the back seat. Good news is the doors open pretty wide. Thanks to that long wheelbase, this opening here is also pretty good. So mounting child seats is pretty easy. You have 2 ISOFIX points on the outside 2 seats, not here in the middle. Let's get inside. Ingress is, again, very easy. Door materials, on the other hand, not so much. These are a little bit hard touch on the top. I do like the texture, but it is all hard plastic. This is soft, and you do have some ambient lighting, so at the end of the day, it's not too bad. Talking about space now, wow. Pretty spacious, I must say. I'm 5'8", or about 1.7 meters. This seat is set to my driving position. So me sitting behind myself, I have plenty of knee room. I have more space to slide my feet under the front seat, depending on, of course, the height of the seat itself. But because this is a SUV style body, there's a lot of headroom. Even with that large panoramic sunroof, I have more than ample headroom. There are also pockets on the backs of the seat. Funny thing, look at this. There's only one vent. There's no split. So either the left side passenger or the right side passenger can have the airflow. But at least, you know, this does provide some ventilation to the back seat. 2 USB-C charging ports as well. There are some air vents below the front seat. So yeah, there's enough airflow that comes to the back. Another thing that's nice back here is the fact that the floor is completely flat. There is no transmission tunnel. There is no kind of center brace in the body shell. There's also a top tether with ISOFIX for the front passenger seat. How is the middle seat? Because while the contour is really nice for the outside 2 passengers, the contour of the seat in the middle is pretty firm. And there's a big bulge right here. And yeah, it's definitely not the most comfortable. In fact, the base is really soft. And here I do feel like I'm a little bit knees up. There is also not so much underthigh support. So this middle seat in the back is reserved for short journeys at best. The seat back is pretty upright, but not too uncomfortable. However, you pull the tab and then you can recline it a little bit. And now it's a little bit more comfortable with the big panoramic roof. It feels like a nice place to be. Now, let's talk about practicality. No automatic tailgate, even here in the Boost version, but what you do get inside speaks for itself. 425 liters of trunk volume with the seats up. Here's my cabin suitcase for reference. So plenty of space inside. Even the floor can be raised if you want to have a very flat loading lip. So you have a lot more versatility. And of course, you can also remove the parcel shelf altogether like that. And now you can access these tabs. They're really easy to reach from the back. And then you can fold the rear seats down completely flat. And then you have 1,335 liters of trunk volume. All right. Now let's go take it for a spin. Atto 2 Boost. So this has 212 PS, 0 to 100 in 7.5 seconds, so 100 kilometers per hour, mind you. So let's see. Put my foot down. Yeah, not too bad, not blistering. Of course, we have different driving modes and we'll get into that, but let's see how it behaves here on these narrow little city streets where, again, probably you would use this car for the most part. One thing that already grabs my attention is the sound of these indicators. Listen to that. Down, 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 down. And on the right, down, down. It's so funny. The popcorn sound is totally replaced by this very melodic sound. Actually, when I first got into it, I thought, oh, is my seatbelt not fastened? Is the door open? Because it sounds more like a warning notification sound. But yeah, a little bit unique, a little bit interesting. Coming back to city driving, so I'm in the normal mode now. Steering feel is really light. The seating position, this tall stance gives me really good view out forward. I can see over the bonnet, so I'm very easily being able to place the car in these narrow lanes. And actually, despite it being a front-wheel drive vehicle, the turning circle, the turning radius is really nice. So as we'll see now, if I have to make this short turn here on the right, it's very easy. Just watch this. I go like this, whoop, and voila. No problem at all. So making a quick 3-point turn as well, like this, is really easy. Also, I love the fact that there's a little shortcut button directly to jump to the very nice high-resolution 360-degree camera. So all in all, a very city-friendly car for sure. Another thing that's nice is the fact that the windshield is really tall, and even the windows on the side are also really nice and tall, and also the windshield in the back has really good visibility. So overall, here in the city, feeling comfortable and feeling confident is definitely no problem at all. So we saw that the Atto 2 is actually a great city car, given that it's also hybrid, and if you have it fully charged and it's running in EV mode, better still, because it's silent, it's quick. The acceleration is sufficient to jump in gaps in the traffic. But now, what about when we're out on the road, on a country road? So let's go to now the sport mode, and let's slow down and test the acceleration from 40 to 80. It's okay. I think the acceleration is more prominent lower down in the speed range, so again between 10 and 20 or 30, but this roll-on acceleration is okay. It's adequate. It doesn't really feel very punchy despite being in the sport mode, despite the petrol engine, like we were saying, running in parallel hybrid and not just series hybrid. So it's definitely not going to set your pants on fire. But what about steering? Here as well, in the sport mode, the weight is a little bit heavier, but on the whole, it also doesn't really feel very sporty. There is also a bit of body roll. We don't have sophisticated adaptive suspension. We just actually even have a basic torsion beam suspension on the rear axle. So there is a bit of body roll. It's not too bad, but definitely not a very sporty feeling. And the steering weight does feel artificial. It's not necessarily self-centering as nicely as maybe some of its other rivals would be. So then it's most suited for leisurely driving, cruising. Yes, you can keep up with the speed of flowing traffic, and you can make sure that you have enough power left to make a quick overtake when needed, but it's definitely not trying to be sporty. That being said, these seats are actually on the sportier side in terms of the way they're contoured. I feel a lot of side bolstering just holding me in place really nice and tightly, so I'm not budging. So even though there is a bit of body roll, you're not feeling like you're getting tossed around inside the car. And in general, I think these seats are very nice. I'm very pleasantly surprised. The firmness and the suppleness of different sections of the seat are also executed really well. So the base has a subtle firmness to it, whereas here in the lumbar area there's a little bit more supple foam. So I think that they've done a good mix of materials to provide a very nice, comfortable seat. Regardless, you should always test drive a car and test it for your body size and your body shape, because I'm probably on the smaller side. Thomas is of course much taller, and then for him the underthigh support or the shoulder support would be a little bit different overall. But now that we're getting a chance to explore the different features of the car, we can also take a look at the adaptive cruise control, the lane keeping assist, and the general ADAS systems. Thankfully there's a very simple shortcut button here, and now I have the ACC activated. The system knows the speed limit up front, so it automatically takes that into account. I just have to press OK on the steering wheel. It's monitoring the distance to the car in front, and even is aware, roughly in the city at least, not as great as on the highway, but it knows the edges of the street as well. And it will also detect now that the traffic sign, the speed limit has changed. It'll give me a quick little notification. I can jump up to that. And now, I also have this really nice view which shows me quite nicely how the car is perceiving the environment around it. So I can see that there is this dotted line in the middle and a solid line on the right-hand side. Now we're on some winding roads. Let's go to sport mode, right? So let's see. Acceleration is honestly not that sharp. It's fine, it's adequate, but it's definitely not blistering. You would expect more from 212 horsepower and a hybrid vehicle. This has pretty basic suspension as well, torsion beam at the rear, and no adaptive damping systems. So there is a little bit of body roll. It's not too bad. And the steering as well has an artificial weight feeling to it. Doesn't feel as natural as maybe some of its competitors who have a more sporty demeanor. The weight is, yeah, it's not bad, but it doesn't really self-center as much. You see, if I let it go, it still doesn't come back to perfect center, so it's not the most engaging vehicle to drive. But that's okay. It's not trying to be. It's not a sporty vehicle. It's only front-wheel drive. It's not branding itself as a hot hatch or a sports version, right? The Atto 2 Boost, the name just implies it's the bigger battery. But I think for most drivers, a lot of friends and family that I know, people are not like me. They're not as nerdy about cars. For them, this would be more than enough. So for the general public, for the target demographic that this is marketing towards, this much of dynamic capability, I think is sufficient. That being said, I'm actually really happy to see how well these seats are holding me in place on these roads. The side bolstering has a nice firmness to it. The base is also really nice. I think they've got the foam density really nailed down. It's supple enough so that it doesn't put pressure on your joints, but it's firm enough so that it's able to hold you in place, for example, like this when you're going around corners. So definitely the seats are holding me in place even though the car is rolling a little bit. Wind noise is a little bit more audible, I think. It's not the quietest out there. It's just a little bit of the wind from the wing mirrors. Otherwise, I don't really hear much of the cars passing me. I don't hear too much of the tires, despite having, big chunky snow tires right now. So sound insulation on the whole is actually also really nice. The regenerative braking also really helps. It's not too obtrusive. It feels really nice and confident, so it's not spongy feeling at the brake pedal. And in this way, you're able to recuperate plenty of energy. And remember, this is still a Rex, right? It's still a hybrid in the sense that it's a series hybrid for the most part, and very rarely does it turn into a parallel hybrid. So no matter what input you provide, it's always the electric motor which starts things off. So it's also really smooth. You don't have any shifting, you don't have any kind of lag, you don't have any the general sensations of a petrol engine. Yes, those are enjoyable in enjoyable petrol-powered vehicles, but in a hybrid like this, I do prefer the series hybrid vehicles over a kind of an eCVT, because then you hear the engine a lot more. You do feel like the acceleration is the engine droning during acceleration, but here it's just the electric motor which takes over most of the time. So overall, yes, it's not the most athletic, it's not the most, sporty, but to do daily duties in the city and out on the open road, this serves the purpose and then some. All right, why don't we just sit down and enjoy the view and have a little chat about the BYD Atto 2 DMi. So at the end of the drive, the computer was saying that for the last 50 kilometers, I was using about 14 kilowatt hours for 100 kilometers and about 1 liter of petrol for 100 kilometers. And in a real world, that's actually a pretty good efficiency. So the claimed range of EV-only driving of 90 kilometers is definitely reasonable. So if you're able to charge it every day, then maybe even the Boost with the bigger battery pack is the option for you. Of course, another big component of the right option for you is the price. The Active in Germany starts at around 36,000 euros, when the Boost is around 39,000 euros. But keep in mind, there's a lot of dealerships giving pretty good discounts right now. Plus, there are new subsidies and incentives that the government is also providing. So you might even be able to get this for just under 30,000 euros. And I think therein lies its biggest appeal, the value for money. Because yes, it's not the most athletic to drive. You have to constantly keep correcting the steering input. The front tends to wash out and understeer a lot more. And the ADAS tech is good, but it's not the best. The EV driving doesn't have a pure one-pedal driving either, so you are not getting all the bells and whistles and all the tech, but you get everything that you need and nothing extra. And for that price, I think it's really appealing for those who want a general do-it-all, jack-of-all daily driver. But what about you? What do you think of this? At the same time, why don't you check out some of these other videos and see some of its other competitors, and then you can make a more informed decision. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.